So now we're on Unit 3, Lecture 9. We're going to take a look at stress and health. We're going to take a look at different types of decisions and how some decisions can be a little bit more stressful than other decisions. And we're also going to take a look at the difference between type A and type B personalities and a little bit about stress in the immunity system. Not going to be quite as long as the last lecture. Then finally, the last thing we'll take a look at is stress and your health. And remember, the reason that this is in the same unit as sensation and perception is that, of course, stress is all about perception. So again, stress is a process, okay? We perceive and respond to certain events. So again, when I see something, what's my primary appraisal? My primary appraisal is, can I handle this? Can I not handle this? The secondary appraisal then is, how do I attack this particular thing? The less the control, the higher the level of stress. And then what also gives us even less control is if we have a lot of options. The more options I have, harder it is to make that decision, and it can actually paralyze us. We think more options. We think more options are good. You know, I want to have more streaming services. I want to have more shows available. I want to have whatever else. But a lot of times, too many options leads to regret. What am I missing out on? Yeah, I'm watching this and this is pretty good, but could I be seeing something better? So we're going to talk about different types of decisions that we make and how they have different levels of stress to them. Four main types of decisions that we're going to make here. One is approach, the other is avoidance, then we have approach, avoidance, and then finally the double approach avoidance decision. So when it comes to each of these types of decisions that we make, conflicts that we come across, the first type of conflict we come across is what is called approach. Approach is when we are deciding between two options that are both pretty attractive. You know, no matter what option we choose, it's going to be pretty good. Would you like cake or would you like pie? Either way, I'm getting dessert. You know, I'm pretty happy about that. No matter what I decide, apple pie, cherry pie, I'm getting pie. So it's not really a stressful decision because no matter what decision you make, you can't screw up. You want to go to a concert, you want to go to a football game. Either way, I'm going out. So this is not a stressful decision because no matter how bad I screw it up, I'm still getting something pretty fantastic. Not really stressful. Two attractive options. The second one is what is called avoidance. Now, avoidance is choosing between two things, and I don't want either of them. Now, again, we may think that this is stressful, but it's really not, because no matter what decision you make, it's going to suck. So it's not really a stressful decision because there's no pressure on you. No matter what you decide, it's going to be terrible. Would you rather take out the trash or would you rather clean your room? I don't want to do either. But if I have to do one, you know, I guess I'll take out the trash because it won't take as long, even though I get garbage water on my feet or whatever. You know, you don't want to do either of them. You know, do you want to study for your physics final or your history final? Neither of them. But I guess if I got to study for one of them, I'm doing a little bit worse in history and maybe they'll be more beneficial to my grade. I'll do that one. They both suck, but I'll at least do that one. Because again, not a lot of stress here because there's not a lot of pressure because no matter what you decide, it's terrible. Now, something terrible is worse than something good. So it is more stressful than approach, but there's not really a lot of pressure because you can't screw it up. You know, when you ask someone who is about to be executed, would you rather have firing squad or lethal injection? Either way, I'm dead. So asking me how I'm going to die really is not going to be the stressful decision. The stress is the death that I'm approaching. So again, approach, either way it's good. Avoidance, either way it's bad. Neither of them really that stressful. Some stress with the avoidance a little bit more than the approach. Now, the next type of decision that we make is what is called approach avoidance. Approach avoidance, this starts to get a little bit more stressful because depending on my actions or lack thereof, either something good will happen or something bad would happen. So now we've got consequences. Now it starts to become a little bit more stressful because based on what steps I take or don't take, either something wonderful is going to happen or something bad is going to happen. So again, this gets a little bit stressful. Should I ask my boss for a raise? Well, if I ask him for a raise, he could say yes. And if he says yes, I get a raise and I like my job a little bit more. But he could say no. And if he says no, suddenly I hate my job because I feel like I'm not getting paid enough. But had I never asked him, then I would have never felt bad about it. Why did I ever ask him for it? Should I ask my parents if I could stay out late? They may say yes, and I get to stay out late, and I'm very happy. Or they may say no, and suddenly I resent my parents. If I just had never asked them, I wouldn't resent them so much. So now it starts to become a little bit more stressful because either something good could happen or something positive, something good and positive could happen or something negative could happen. One of those two things. And that starts to get a little bit stressful. But that is not the most stressful decision. And by the way, it's not even the most common decision we make. The most stressful decision and the most common decision we make is what is called double approach avoidance. Let me move myself here real quick. Double approach avoidance is basically the idea of, based on my actions or lack thereof, either 50 good things could happen or 50 bad things could happen. And this is where we start to get stressed out because, again, only one thing is going to happen. But what I do is I sit there and I prepare for the 100 possible good things and the 100 possible negative things, even though only one out of these 200 things is ever going to happen in the first place. And so a lot of times I'm going to have all this anticipatory stress that's most of it's never going to happen, but I stress about it anyways. Okay. For example, should I ask somebody out to the prom? Should I ask this girl out to the prom? Well, I could ask her to the prom and she says yes. And then she says yes. And we go to the prom and we have a good time. And that's all fantastic. But then later on, she decides that she doesn't want to date me anymore. And then so I asked the wrong person to prom, and then suddenly I'm not feeling good about it or anything else. Or I could ask her to prom and then she says yes. And then we go to prom and we have a bad time. It was like a waste of money. And now prom is all tense. Or I could ask her to prom, then she says yes. And we go to prom and we have a good time. And we have such a good time. We start to date during the summer. And we start to date during the summer. It's fantastic. But then we go to different colleges. She goes to Oklahoma State. I go to OSU. Which is in Ohio, not the Oklahoma State. We go to different OSUs, and now I'm never going to see her again. Long distance relationships, those couldn't possibly work. Or I asked her to prom, then she says yes, and then we go to prom, we have a good time, we get over the summer. She goes to Oklahoma State, and I decide, well, instead of going to Ohio State, I'll go to Oklahoma State. I mean, OSU is an OSU, so then I go to Ohio State, and we start to have a good time. But then we break up, and now I'm stuck at Oklahoma State. I don't want to be in Oklahoma. Why am I in Stillwater? I'd rather be in Columbus. And by the way, this is just me preparing for the yes answer. We haven't even gotten to no. I could ask her to prom, then she says no, so I never ask a girl out again. And so now I got to become a monk. Or ask her to prom, and then she says no, so I decide to go to prom all by myself. And then I see another girl there, and that's someone nobody else asked out. So now I can start to dance with her. And now I have a date, and I didn't even have to buy her dinner or anything. And then we start to hang out during the summer, and it's fantastic. Then we start to have a relationship, and it's great. But then we go to 2 different schools, and it all sucks. And then we go through all those negative scenarios. Only one's going to happen. And as a matter of fact, whatever I think is going to happen is probably not going to happen. I'm going to prepare for 200 things and then, that was going to happen. And so a lot of times when we think something happened and we knew it was going to happen, we change our memory in retrospect. And we'll talk about that when we get to memory. So again, double approach avoidance is the most stressful type of decision that we have. And again, we would think that more choice would be fantastic, but what more choice gives us is more stress. If I offered you a choice between 2 flavors of ice cream, I said, would you like chocolate or would you like vanilla? It's not going to be a very stressful thing. It really isn't. Because I say, would you like chocolate or would you like vanilla? You know what you're missing in chocolate and you know what you're missing in vanilla. And since chocolate and vanilla are very common ice creams and whatever else, it's not going to be very stressful to you because you usually control that situation. Yet if I take you to Baskin Robbins, if you've ever been to Baskin Robbins or Marble Slab or Cold Stone or whatever, when people have all these different things that they can choose from, a lot of times they stress out. And they stress out because, I could get this or I could get that. I want the Rocky Road. Give me the Rocky Road with the whipped cream. No, not with the whipped cream. Give me with that. And that's how they stress us out. When you go to the places and what was the yogurt place and you get your own little yogurt, the Minchies, where there's so many choices. Try this. Oh, which one do I get? And then which one am I missing? and you get whatever you get. And then when you get it, you're like, oh, why didn't I get that? And why didn't I get that? And I hate this. Too many options leads to too much stress. It just leads to too much stress. It's not what am I watching on TV? What am I missing on TV? And one of the reasons that you guys have such difficulty in your relationships in high school is you're surrounded by options. You're surrounded by a bunch of single people that are your age and everything else. And yes, I'm dating this person, but is this the best possible person I could date? Studies show that the fewer selections we have, the more satisfied we are with that selection because we know what we're missing. And again, you go to 31 flavors, whatever else, it's like, oh yes, I got this, but there's too many things on the menu. We like less choice. And this paradox of choice, the more choices lead to higher expectations. The higher expectations, there's less of a possibility that I'm going to be happy. They did a market study where they took these people out to a market and they were really attracted to this display because it had so many options. It had like 24 different samples. So many options that people could look at and they could try and they could taste. I think it was crackers and jam or something like that. But only 3% of people actually bought because there were too many jams to choose from. Yet in another display, they only had 6 samples available, which might have had fewer people come up to the display. But of the people who came up, 32% of them bought because there were fewer flavors to choose from. It wasn't, oh, which one am I missing out on? And you were more happy with your choice. They did another study with people rating chocolate. Those that had 6 different chocolates to choose from were more satisfied than people who were given 30 different chocolates to choose from. They were less satisfied. But of course, the least satisfied were people that were just eat this, and they had no choice. So we don't want no choice because that's stressful. You have to do this. We want a little bit of choice. But if we have too much choice, it starts to become stressful. Internet dating is a great example of this. Because when you choose someone to date, you have this perception that there's all these other people out there, and that's how they get you. Because again, internet dating does not want you to find love. They don't, at least not right away. Because if you find love, you're not paying the whatever it is, $29.95 a month. I don't know what they're charging, but to get on Match.com, Love Only, or silver singles mingling with farmers only and whatnot. There's even a flat earthers dating website. But there's all these different sort of niche websites. And then what happens is you take a look at this and they go, look at this, 2,000 matches found just for you, just for me. Oh, look at her. She's online right now. Contact her right now. Oh, she's online right now. And I better get in touch with her because there's all these choices and they're all just for me. And she's pretty, but she's prettier. And oh, she's a professional. And we got all these different choices. So you sit there and you go, okay, well, I got a list of 10 things that I want in somebody. And you look at this person, well, I got 4, and this person has 7, and this person has 8. Oh my God, they have 8. That's great. If you find someone that has 8 out of 10 things you want, you should grab onto that person. You should hold that person. You should nurture that person. You should love that person because you're a weirdo. The fact that they have 8 out of 10 things that you would like, it's amazing. But you go on that date with that person and you go, wow, this is an incredible person. They got 8 out of 10 things I like. And you got to compromise a little bit. No big deal. Then in your mind, you're thinking back on my laptop. What happens with my matches tomorrow? Maybe someone will have 9. Maybe someone will have 10. And it's always about opportunity. It's always about this idea of regret. And again, the more that we have, the more likely it's going to be stressful. And does it pay to be popular, man? The more friends you have, friends can be stressful. Young adults were asked to keep a health diary. And for those with low levels of social connection, they were less likely to get sick. Now, again, that could have had to do with their lower levels of stress. It could also have a fact to do with maybe they're interacting with fewer people. But a lot of times the person with fewer friends is a happier person. It's a person with 100 friends. What are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing? Why are you hanging out with them? You're not hanging out with us, and all the polls and everything else. As you get older, the groups of friends that you have become less and less and less. But so does your daily stress become less and less and less. My wife and I really don't hang out with a whole lot of other people, and because we like hanging out with one another. We get invited to parties, we get invited to other things, but we're like, oh man, we're gonna have to get in the car, we're gonna have to change, we're gonna have to go across town, we're gonna have to get someone to, it's just a hassle.
when we're just so happy and so content with one another and with people who are close to us and whatnot. Sometimes popularity isn't what it is. So again, could be due to stress level, could be exposure to things. And as you age, your social group becomes smaller and your stress level becomes smaller as well. Now, again, more friends, more hassles. Studies will show you that people that have more followers on the internet actually have more stress. And it's weird because you want followers. The internet's a really strange thing about that. I don't want to play the when I was in high school game, but when I was in high school, if there was this girl that I barely knew and I maybe met her once or twice, or maybe we were acquaintances and knew each other's name and hey, how you doing, sort of things. But if I had access to hundreds, if not thousands of pictures of this girl, and I knew her thoughts all the time, and I knew who she was dating, and I knew where she was right now, I'd be a stalker. There'd be a restraining order against me. Not that I know that from experience or anything, but I would assume that there would be. Yet today you're just a follower. And the weird thing is we want as many followers as possible. And then what happens is when you have all these people following you and you're following all these people, you get on the internet and you look at what they're doing. And it's like, oh my God, why are they doing that? Oh my God, that looks fun. Oh my God, I hate my life. And we start to compare ourselves to everyone else. And then, I get it when I was a kid, when I was in high school, junior high, whatever. If I found out that there was a party and I didn't get invited to it, boy, that's crushing. But you guys at this age, everything that you're doing is advertised. And then what happens is people who aren't a part of it feel left out. And this fear of missing out is a real thing. It's actually called FOMO, fear of missing out. Being excluded from social group activities lights up our amygdala and it triggers pain. And that pain that it triggers is actually very close to physical pain. Higher FOMO scores, of fear of missing out, correlate with lower scores in mood, lower scores in general well-being, lower levels of general life satisfaction. And it also correlates with higher social media use, especially if the presence is not based in reality. The more honest the portrayal, the less FOMO. But when you've got people who are putting up pictures and posing 15 times to take a selfie to make it the perfect picture and are putting filters on it and are trying to make their life better than what it is, they realize it's a fraud and they can't live up to it. So this fear of missing out is real. The amount of time spent on social media may not be a good predictor of depression. However, a large number of depressive symptoms in teens do predict more social media use. So usually, a lot of social media use, it's usually a sign of depression, but whether it causes it or not, we're not quite sure. But when you take a look at studies like this, the more hours spent on screen activities are higher signs of anxiety and depression. How many total hours per day are you on your phone? And when you see people here with depression and anxiety, and again, I'm not saying don't use your phone at all. People who don't use their phone, their anxiety and depression's up because, oh my God, I don't know what anybody's doing. And you're big fear of missing out. Use it for about an hour, check up on things, whatever, hour or two. The level of your diagnosis of anxiety and depression is much lower in the 5%, 8% range. But then as you start to use it for 3 hours, 4 hours, 5, 6, 7 hours, the idea of you getting anxiety and depression becomes much higher. Again, we're talking about a number like 18%. Okay, 18%, which is about 1 out of 5 people, a little bit less than that, with anxiety using it 7 hours a day. But again, we had this to this to this to this. It's a lot of people. All right. But with lifetime diagnosis, you're going to have anxiety at some point in your life. It goes up to 18% if it's 7 hours. Now, again, does it cause it? No, but it is a response to it. And again, 18% is doubling this 9% right here. More hours, more likely to have depression, more likely to have anxiety. Yet if you do things, this is 8th and 10th graders, the more time you spend outside, sports and exercise, being with other people, religious things, homework, things like that, the correlation of happiness goes up. Yet the more time texting, social media, on the internet, the correlation of happiness goes down. Being with real people correlates with more happiness. It's just the way that it is. But watching people through a screen more depression, more anxiety, more stress is what we're talking about. And we'll take a look at things like this all the time. Um, 2012 is a big year. 50% of teenagers have smartphones by 2012, which is this red line right here. Not hanging out with friends. Times per week, teenagers go out without their parents. Now, again, this is the amount of times, and suddenly half the people have phones, goes way down. Right here, less dating. Percentage of teenagers who have ever gone out on a date. 12th graders, 10th graders, 8th graders who have been out on a date, half of 8th graders, 85%, back in the 80s of 12th graders have been on dates. But now we're getting down to, we've got the internet, and now suddenly we've got the smartphone, and it's like 50%, 55% of 12th graders, 45% have never been on a date, ever. This becomes their relationships, and there's some good about this, teen pregnancy and things like that have gone down dramatically, but you're losing that personal connection. You're losing, now is the time to date people, because now is not necessarily to find the person you want, but it's also to check off the people you don't want. The type of people you don't want to be around. It's good experience. And if you never do that, it just gets harder and harder. So again, here's some things about the psychology of Facebook. If you want to pause and take a look at some statistics there on it, other things here on social media and its impact on stress and happiness, some more stuff there. If you'd like to pause on it, take a look at it, digital stress, all these things, the multitasking that we do, etc. Now, what we've got going on here is this is are you a type A or a type B personality? Now, on your outline, you have it numbered 1 through 40, or you can get out a piece of paper and you can number your piece of paper, but number it like this, where you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. You go across that way because we're going to need these columns later. Okay, so go ahead and pause it here, number it 1 through 40, or get to 1 through 40. Okay, put it back. Here are your 40 statements. All you're going to be answering about these statements is this statement about you usually true, or is it usually false? Again, I'm going to go pretty fast here. And if it's too fast, feel free to pause at any point. Okay, number 1, I am more restless and fidgety than most people. Is that true or false about you? 2, in comparison to others, I'm not very involved in school. True or false? 3, I ordinarily work quickly and energetically. Let's get it done. Let's just get it done and out of the way. Number 4, I rarely have trouble finishing my work. Deadline's not really a big deal. Number 5, now realize we've gone 1, 2, 3, 4 across. We're going back over to 5. Number 5, I hate giving up before I'm absolutely sure I'm defeated. I'll try again. 6, I am rather deliberate, considerate in phone conversations. What this means is when you're talking to somebody, you're actually truly listening to what they have to say. You're not going, I can't wait till they shut up so I can say what I want to say. Number 7, I'm often in a hurry. I like to move. I'm always in a hurry. Moving. 8, I'm somewhat relaxed and at ease when I'm at work or school. Not really stressed. 9, and again, we're going back down. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, back to 9. My achievements are considered significantly higher than most people I know. I've got a lot of ribbons and trophies in my room. 10, tailgating bothers me more than a car in front slowing me up. Now again, tailgating is someone in your rearview mirror forcing you to go forward. That bothers you more than the car in front slowing you up. They can both bother you, but tailgating bothers you more. 11, in conversations, I often gesture with my hands. 12, I rarely drive a car too fast. If everybody else is going 75, I'm going 75. I'm going to go with the pace of traffic. 13, I prefer work in which I can move around. The idea of sitting here watching me give a lecture online drives you crazy. 14, people consider me to be rather quiet. 15, sometimes I think I shouldn't work so hard, yet I remain driven. 16, I usually speak more softly than most people. 17, my handwriting's rather fast. 18, I often work slowly and deliberately. Let's get it right the first time. Take our time. 19, I thrive on challenging situations. The more the better. Like a good challenge. 20, I prefer to linger over a meal and enjoy it. Take my time, chew saliva. Love it. 21, I like to drive a car rather fast if there's no speed limit. Even if there is a speed limit. You're the person who's going to zoom out of the red light and then sit at the next red light for 30 seconds while I catch up to you. 22, I like work that's not too challenging. There's nothing wrong with a good ... You know, it's a unicorn. 23, in general, I approach my work more seriously than most people. And when people are goofing off, it annoys me. 24, I talk more slowly than most people. 25, I've often been asked to be an officer of some group or group. Leadership is thrust upon me. 26, I often let a problem work itself out by waiting. Let's just sit back, see where the dust settles, see where everything goes. 27, I like to persuade others to my point of view because my point of view is the right point of view. You need to know that. 28, I generally walk more slowly than most people. I mean, we'll get there anyways. 29, I eat rapidly. Even if there's plenty of time, we're going to wolf this thing down. 30, I will only offer my opinion on something when I'm asked for it. You don't ask me for my opinion, you don't hear my opinion. 31, I get very impatient when I'm behind a slow driver I cannot pass. 32, I enjoy being around children. They're precious. 33, it makes me mad when I see people not living up to their potential. You see someone dating someone and you're like, oh, they could do so much better. It drives you crazy. Someone playing dumb, whatever. 34, I prefer walking to jogging. You know, gonna get there anyways while I work up a sweat. 35, when I'm in the express line at the grocery store, I count the number of items the person ahead of me has. We all do that. But if it's over the limit, I'm going to comment. I'm going to mention we live in a society and there are rules. 36, I enjoy reading for pleasure. 37, I have high standards for myself as well as other people. 38, I like hanging around talking to my friends. 39, I often feel that others are taking advantage of me or being inconsiderate. And finally, 40, if someone's in a hurry, don't mind letting them go ahead of me. No big deal. Now, how do we do this to get your results? You take every odd number question you have, everything under 1, everything under 3, all those odd questions. Count the total number of T's you have. That's going to give you a positive number. All right. The next step, pause if you need to. The next step, count every even number question that you answer true and subtract a point. Okay, so for every odd T you have, that's a plus. It's going to be somewhere between 0 and plus 20. So let's say you've got a total of 13 T's that are in the odd numbers. Then you count all of your T's that are even. And let's say you have 8 in the even. So I've got 13 and a negative 8. Put them together, you got a positive 5. Okay, so if I've got 19 T's that are odd and I've got 7 T's in the even, then that's 19 minus 7, which is going to give me a positive 12. If I've got 6 T's that are even and I've got 16 T's that, six T's that are odd and 16 that are even, that'd be 16 subtracted from 6, I got a negative 10. Okay, so figure that out. Go ahead and pause it. Let's come back and see what it means. Most people are somewhere between positive 10 and negative 10, and that's a moderate A to a moderate B. And that just means that you've got some A characteristics, you got some B characteristics. And some of us may have found it a very Zen-like 0. All right, now, if I'm plus 11 to plus 20, then I'm a definite A. And if I'm negative 11 to a negative 20, I'm a definite B. Okay, and really probably closer to 13, 14, more with your definite A, definite B. So what does this mean? Well, type A, here's the good news. The good news is a type A tends to be a higher achiever. You tend to be an innovator. You tend to be a moneymaker, never satisfied with the status quo. Things could be better than what they are right now. You tend to be creative. You tend to find new solutions. You tend to want to do something different than the way it was. The reason that we have the iPhone, I don't even know what iPhone this is. Let's call it 7, 8, 9. I don't even know. It's whichever one my wife gave up and gave to me. But this right here, I don't think can do anything else. I mean, I sit there and I press my finger. It can read my fingerprint and it knows that it's me. That's pretty amazing. It can even do facial recognition. That's pretty amazing. It's got every song. I can just go right here, press that, and it's got my songs on songs I've recently. I can, if I want to listen to Karma, Karma, Karma Chameleon, I can, like out of nowhere. I could just go, culture. Let's be cooler. Let's go with Beastie Boys. Okay, I go to the Beastie Boys and I got my entire Beastie Boys collection right here. I can hit check your head
And then suddenly I just hit that. And then it's all right here. So all those CDs that you see back there in the middle section, they're all in here. That's amazing. I can look at a map. I can go here to Google Earth, and I can go anywhere on the planet that I want to go. And, here's the entire Earth, and I can look at the pyramids of Egypt if I want to. This is amazing. You can't do anything more. That's incredible. But there's somebody right now who's looking at this phone and going, it's not good enough. It needs to be thinner. It needs to be wider. It needs to be brighter. It needs to be able to heat up and toast the bed. It's got to do something else. They're not satisfied with it. That's the type A personality. That's good news. Bad news, you're constantly in a state of stress because you're always trying to, nothing's ever good enough for you. You want more and more and more. 70% of heart attack victims are type A people. You're combat ready. You want to do it all the time. Again, when I think of Apple products and I think of the rise in them and everything else, the name that comes to mind more than anybody else is Steve Jobs. Where's Steve Jobs? Dead. He's dead because he was constantly stressed out, constantly pushing himself, constantly doing all these things. It's not a good way to live your life. You're more vulnerable to heart disease, more vulnerable to all these other things. Okay. More likely to smoke. You're sleeping less. There's not enough hours in the day. You're going to drink more caffeine because you got to be up all the time. You're more your body's always physiologically reacting to threats, and you think that everything's a stress or a threat, even though a lot of times they're not. You tend to be more cynical, less patient, more sarcastic than type B people are. You're more likely to suffer from anxiety and depression because you set goals that were unrealistic in the first place and you put all this pressure on yourself to get it. That's a type A. A type B, good news about a type B is you generally are relaxed and patient. Not really a big deal. Is this really worth fighting for? So you're going to live a longer life. Your body tends to be healthier because it's doing what it's designed to do. It's not having resources taken away for stress. You tend to be happier. You tend to be satisfied. You set reasonable goals. So you go, well, it's great being a type B, right? Well, you're going to live a longer life, but you're probably going to be living it at your parents' house because you're like, what the hell? They got free cable. I got free Wi-Fi here. Why would I leave? You're not as driven as a type A. You're more likely to use phrases like, let's blow it off, or that's good enough, and that's not really living. I'll date her. She's good enough. She doesn't really make me happy, but she's got a pulse. She's somebody, that's good enough. Life is not about it's good enough. Life is about living. All right. You're more willing to sacrifice your own success for someone else's success. Well, sometimes, man, you got to win. Sometimes we got to get some victories and everything else. So again, there's got to be a happy medium between the two. And again, if you're someone in that +5 to -5 0 range, you've got a good battle or a good balance of type A and type B. But what we really get when we get to those extreme A's, this is what's referred to as unhealthy perfectionism. Perfectionism is a clinical sense where you take the desire to do a good job too far. Someone who gets a 92A, it's not good enough. Well, what did I miss? 92, that's almost a B. I can't handle it. That's not good enough. You're over focused on the questions that you miss. And you feel like a failure because you missed 3, 4, 5, 6 questions. What I miss, what I miss, what I miss. That's the perfectionist. Always asking what they missed, never giving themselves credit for what they got right. Even 100 tests, even when you get 100 on a test, you're just like, teacher made it too easy. You can never be satisfied. Your self-worth is tied to never making a mistake, because if you make a mistake, you think that you're going to be judged by others poorly, and they'll focus on this. This could come from within you. It could come from friends. It could come from family, the expectation of keeping up, and all these things. Now, again, the number of perfectionists, the number of people who are deemed unhealthy perfectionists has been increasing with each generation. It could be possible because, sometimes back in the day when you didn't know something, but now you can just Google anything. Oh man, I should have known that. I should have known that. Why didn't I know? I should have known. These people know, they're doing well. Why not me? And it just gets ultra competitive. Positive strivings, functional perfectionism is healthy.
To want to be, there's nothing wrong with wanting to be a straight A student, getting to that 89.7, which is just as valuable as the 99.7. Just do the best you can, and that's what I've asked my kids from day one. If my kid gets a B in a class, a C in a class, a D in a class, my question is, was that the best you could do? And if they could honestly say that's the best, that's fine. You're not going to be an expert in everything. You're not going to know everything. This unhealthy perfectionism is just stress. Many problems related to stress can be described as psychosomatic, where people think they are unreal or imagined. But everything that we are is what is called psychophysiological. Everything physiological is simultaneously psychological. How I feel affects how I think, and how I think impacts how I feel. So it is very possible that my stress can make me feel terrible physically, because back pain, body aches, ulcers, all these things can get in the way of us leading a healthy life. What our body naturally does is our body has naturally fought diseases since the beginning of man. We've got different types of white blood cells called lymphocytes. You got B cells, you got T cells from the bone marrow, from the thymus, whatever. But the job of these white blood cells more than anything else is to fight disease. But if you are always stressed and you are always in the resistance stage and you're always running away from that imaginary lion, your body's going, ain't got time to make white blood cells. And as a result, you're more likely to get sick, because your body's not doing what it's designed to do, because you're dealing with this imaginary stress. Psychophysiological illnesses are real. Any stress-related physical illness is a mind-body thing, and this is different from a hypochondriac. A hypochondriac is someone who thinks they're sick, but they aren't sick. Okay, I'm talking about someone who is stressed, who is really sick because of their stress. And then suddenly a common wound takes longer to heal. We become more vulnerable to common illnesses. You're more likely to catch a cold or a flu or a headache or anything else like that when you're sick. Think about news coverage. News coverage makes people more anxious about COVID. And here's the weirdest thing about COVID. During that pandemic time, and you can make an argument whether we're out of it or not, but people who were stressed about COVID, and I can't touch anything, and I got to wear 15 masks, and I got to have gloves on top of gloves, and get away from me, and I can't leave my house. The more you stressed about COVID, the more vulnerable your body was to COVID. It's the person who didn't stress about COVID who were less likely to get it. But at the same time, the people who didn't stress about COVID and didn't wear a mask and didn't get a vaccination are also more likely to leave themselves vulnerable. So there's a happy medium in between. Okay, let's take precautions about COVID. Let's go ahead and, get our vaccination, as I have right here. I've gotten my vaccination, and I wore a mask during the time when not many people were vaccinated, but now I'm not. Now I'm not thinking about it. I'm not watching the news coverage. I'm not refreshing CNN all the time and looking for data and charts and whatever. That can lead to illnesses. And a great study is right here. What they basically did was they took a group of people and they asked them, how much stress were they going through in their lives. There was groups of people that had no stress going on in their lives. There's some people that have been exposed to stress for less than a month, new job, whatever. Some people have been going through it 1 to 6 months, tough road in their marriage, 6 to 24. And some people who have been under constant stress for over 2 years. Again, a really bad relationship, new parents, whatever. There could be reasons for that. Then they studied all these people, and they just basically said how much stress is in your life. And once they were able to categorize these people into these different groups, they gave them all a shot, which they just said was, here's a little B12 shot. But what they actually gave them was a cold virus, a flu shot or something like that. Now, normally the reasons you're given a flu shot, in the same way when you're given the COVID vaccine, it's to give you the virus so that your body can naturally defend itself against it. And most of us won't show the symptoms of a cold or the flu or anything else like that. So they give these people the cold virus, and the people who had no stress in their lives, the ability of them to catch a cold was very low because their body was doing what it was naturally supposed to do.
less than a month, 1 to 6, 6 to 24, over 2 years of it, the more stress you were under, people who are under chronic stress for over 2 years were 4 times as likely to catch a cold as someone who was under no stress. So again, how we act inside will impact on whether or not disease comes in. And then if we get the disease, we become more stressed about it and everything else. We're going to pick up more on that in the next lecture. We're going to talk about stress and health, and we're also going to talk about ways that you can combat stress as well, having a sense of humor, exercise, things such as that. So that wraps us up for all of, what was this, lecture number 9. Lecture number 9 ends us right there.